Alright, I'm back. At least I think I'm back. Left off last time, as you may have seen if you saw the video. My small little GE pocket camcorder here is overheating. I know it's supposed to be good for underwater and whatnot, for up to 15 feet, something like that. Um, so I did order a replacement. So I wanted to go ahead and talk briefly about the glues. My personal favorite is the Model Master. Although I think probably all of us started off with the Tester's bottles, or not bottles, but what I refer to as toothpaste glues, because of the containers they're in. Those are fine and dandy. They'll certainly do the job. When I was growing up, before I knew anything about like this, I used to go ahead and put a dollop on a piece of paper and use toothpicks to go ahead, excuse me, and put down the glue. Since that time, I know they came out with control tips. I got the hiccups. Excuse me. They came out with control tips to go ahead and put on those little toothpaste dispensers. And those are nice. You can go ahead and, depending on where you clip the piece at, you can go ahead and get different amounts of glue coming down. My personal favorite, though, nowadays is the Model Master liquid cement. Both the Tester and the Model Master are somewhat considered hot glues. All of them, all the cements, will go ahead and melt to some extent the plastic that you go ahead and you put the glue down on. This and the Tester's brand cements are a little bit on the thick side, which can be kind of nice. Main reason why I like this is that it's got a metal dispensing tip here, and in case it ever gets clogged, you can just go ahead and fish in a piece of wire, and it comes with the wire typically. Although for whatever reason my little wire is missing on this little container, and it's probably around here somewhere. But good brand of glue. Another popular one, I will say that this does kind of stink. My favorite smelling one, though, growing up, used to be the one put out by Toys R Us. It at least had a citrus smell to it. Anyways, a lot of people also prefer to use the Tamiya. The extra thins, also excellent. It is thin in comparison, so actually you might be able to see the air bubble kind of jostling around in there. Kind of like water almost. But good thing about this is, whereas this, you put the bead down on your model and the cement basically is not going to travel at all. Okay? Where you put it down is where it's going to stay for the most part. Might move just a little bit. This one has what is referred to as capillary reactions. Because it is so thin, it'll actually go ahead and migrate down the seam where you're laying it down. Which can be very nice when you're gluing things together, because you may go ahead and use something like a CA or super glue, I mean. And then you may need to go ahead and put a little bit more in there. This will go ahead and just, follow that seam down very nicely. So it's self-leveling because of that. Some other people will also go ahead and take this and, with the jar maybe about, I don't know, half or a quarter filled, they'll go ahead and take things like the sprues, or they'll go ahead and, take styrene plastic sheets, and they'll go ahead and cut off a little bit, usually about a 1-to-1 mixture with the glue, and they'll go ahead and let it sit in the glue and dissolve. And the reason for that is that when it gets finished dissolving, you get a nice, almost like a putty, if you will. But it's a plastic putty. So what ends up happening when you use that, it'll form into the seams as if you had gone ahead and used putty. So, like, here's the Bondo putty that a lot of people are kind of used to, or, there's other brands as well. But when you go ahead and sand this stuff down, when you've mixed it with the styrene, it goes ahead and when you sand it, it's as if you're sanding the plastic itself. So you're not going to get a lot of the what's the word I'm looking for, the divots and whatnot, like you would in putting down the Bondo or whatnot. Um, because it actually is you're sanding plastic. Um, just like I was earlier with these guys. So, that can actually be a very good little tool to have in your arsenal of model building. So, if it wasn't for the fact that this was a brand new bottle, and I don't have an old bottle anymore, well, I did have an old bottle, but it was pretty gunked over because of how old it was. I'd go ahead and I'd take a little bit of styrene plastic there and drop it in there. Let it dissolve for several hours at least before I went to go ahead and use it. So, good trick, fun to do, but something that just about all modelers will do is come up with little tricks that they like. Speaking about tricks, here's one trick I want to go ahead and key in on before I start working on this. So, give me a moment, I'll be right back. Okay, and we're back. The other thing I wanted to bring up, for those that may be new to the hobby, is modelers are scrappers. We're great at going through the trash, if you know what I mean. Especially for those that like to go ahead and do, their own little model kits or model sets completely from scratch. One thing that I like is every once in a while, and I don't do it that often, but I'll go ahead and go through a fast food place, especially those that have plastic little containers. This one, I don't know if you can make it out, it's KFC. It holds, normally, a small individual of coleslaw. So here locally, it's part of their $5 menu. So I'll go ahead every once in a while, and instead of asking for the mashed potatoes that go along normally with it, I'll ask them if they can go ahead and throw in the mashed potatoes. Or instead of the mashed potatoes, to go ahead and throw in the coleslaw. Because then, I can go ahead and toss in the parts to the model that have come loose. Makes a nice little way to go ahead and hold them, and if need be, I can seal them up. And I've got another container up here. I've got another one downstairs as well. So, those little containers can be very helpful and handy. Anyways, getting back to the model build. And this was the last piece I was going to do before everything kind of overheated. One of the things that I do use is I've got a protractor ruler compass set here that I use to go ahead and help with my builds to some extent. It'll help me, keep my angles and whatnot. Help scribe in circles. But it's good for going ahead and make sure I keep everything at, 90-degree angles, like Airwolf's wing is supposed to be. So, oops, helps if I put my visor on, although I don't need the light. But when I go ahead and line these up, to go ahead and keep them at a 90-degree angle. Although it looks like I need to go ahead and sand that leading edge down just a little bit. So, let me go ahead and take care of that real quick. I thought I got that earlier, but apparently I did not. I apologize for the sound of the whirling noise. That's actually my ceiling fan doing its job. Where most of the country, especially down in the south, have been dealing with hurricanes. People fear, the earthquakes here in California. Reality is, earthquakes, yeah, they do happen, kind of all the time. What most people don't realize is that the bedrock here in California, or here in the western states, period, is a fairly dense material. You may recall an earthquake that took place along the East Coast a few years ago, and there was devastation going for 100 plus miles, and it was, I know, in the Richter scale level of 4 or 5. And not to say that's not a bad earthquake, because it is, but because the soil is different along the East Coast, or specifically the bedrock, if you will, is different, it allowed for all that devastation. Here on the West Coast, if you're talking about a 4 or 5, yeah, a 4 will sleep through it. It might wake us up. It'll probably go ahead and cause a little sloshing in the pools. But it's not that bad. Same thing with up to like a 5.5. Yeah, it'll wake us up. We'll go ahead and go, ooh, an earthquake. Roll back over. Okay, maybe not exactly that, but you kind of get the idea, I think. Out here, those are not that bad. If anything gets broken, it's, grocery store, something was on the very edge of the shelf and knocks over. Our attitude out here on the West is pretty much, okay, fine, we had an earthquake. Or it's in the 6s or, higher. For the most part, we're not worried about it. Yeah, we want to make sure everything and everyone's safe, but it's not much of a big deal out here. What people don't realize is that it's actually worse on the east of the Rockies. People don't realize that the course of the Mississippi had been changed once because of an earthquake. So, it's more serious east of the Rockies than it is here on the West Coast. I'm just going to go ahead and put a bead of glue down on this, right there on the edge of that wing. And right on the top of that little nib. So that way, when it gets inside, we'll go ahead and grip into there as well. So it's in there. Assuming that's relatively flat, I'll go ahead and hold those together for the next minute or so to make sure I've got a 90-degree hold. So I know this is going to overheat here pretty quickly, so I'm going to go ahead and say hope everyone has a good day, happy modeling, and be sure to share the joy with others. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.